possibilities of data being, extracted. How is it benefiting? I mean, who is benefiting it? Is it the service providers of social media, or is it, have you realized few of the companies have come up with their own dedicated apps? I mean, initially they never had. Why are they coming with apps? So that's how you need to start thinking. Not because they have too much money that they want to do apps, but fundamentally you need to understand why are they doing these apps, and what is written in their terms and conditions, or agreements and terms. That's very important for you. That gives you idea as to how companies trying to use the data. Have you noticed it? Sometimes you thought something in your brain, the ad is on the phone. Scary or exciting? Very scary. How did it happen? So these are the questions you need to ask. It's not that what is ChatGPT. That's important. I'm saying ChatGPT is good. But you as a business graduate, it's important to understand how is it happening? Why is it happening the way it is? You ask the same question. Example, on a ChatGPT you ask, define economies of scale. Do you think it will be the same answer for both of you? I mean, you take two laptops, you sit down, ChatGPT will give both same answers? Okay, you don't know it, right? So do something like this. You need to understand, how is it that it's showing answers to you? It's looking at your previous questions that you asked. It's looking at the kind of vocabulary you're typing in. This is where you need to focus on. Okay.
Yeah, so this is a question which I kind of want to ask both of you. And then maybe we can open the podium for Q&A with the audience. Is that okay? So it is essential that students understand that over time that the kind of jobs that are in the market will become more repetitive. Okay, so we are showered with the word like automation, okay, use of robot, use of AI. However, there will always be roles requiring creative skills, cognitive skills, and emotional intelligence. So what was highlighted in the morning keynotes session also, like the leadership should always be human. Okay, so what are your both thought on this? Like how then students prepare, or how important should this quality they should give to about the emotional skills, about the emotional intelligence, and how we can make sure that leadership is still human? Yeah.
I'll repeat the same thing again. All these tools are an enablers. I mean, before ChatGPT came, we thought Facebook was a game changer, right? And you do the research. I mean, how many months it has taken Facebook to reach 100 million users? And how many days ChatGPT, any guesses how many days ChatGPT took to reach 1 million users? 5. Very good, 5. And how about 100 million? 20. Close to 30 days. See, and for Facebook, it's even bigger than that. I mean, longer duration. So what is it trying to tell you? These innovations will definitely happen. You remember the app Pokemon Go which came? Everybody were on the road, going around and trying to collect things, right? So innovations are inevitable, but it is important for you to understand how are you using that innovations. I always keep telling this, no matter which AI tool you use, human intervention is mandatory. Without human intervention, the tool cannot add value to you. And I want to take this example. How much time would a movie trailer be usually? 1.5 minutes? And do you know how much time it takes to make a movie trailer? So these are the questions you need to think through. I mean, you can just Google and figure out AI for movie trailers. It's such a beautiful business case actually. In India, it's a little different because the words, the emotions which are tagged to AI cannot be analyzed much more in India because rain suddenly falls and everybody dances. But in Hollywood, the terms, the words, the emotions which is talking about, emotions are tagged where it analyzes the previous movies and then comes up with a conclusion or recommendation and saying that this movie in this genre, and I mean like in an action movie, these are the scenes which become a hit for the previous movies. So if you are making this movie, ideally these are the scenes that you need to pick up. Once it recommends, now the job of a human comes into play. Even now, basic example, when you use ChatGPT, you copy and paste it, right? Why are you doing that? I mean, don't you wish that it will just, integrate itself into Word document? It is happening now. I mean, anyways, ChatGPT will in future integrate itself into Word document. But you need to understand which is the tool that is adding value to what you're thinking. I mean, I would not be surprised if there is another tool which comes which will beat ChatGPT out of the stadium. Is it possible? Yes. So what is constant here? Change and our thinking. Our thinking keeps evolving, but that's a constant which is enabling all these things to happen. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I'd like to add a little perspective, especially on empathy, right? What ChatGPT doesn't have and you have, or all of us have, that's empathy, right? You can think as a user, so-and-so, business user, somebody who's learning, somebody who's in the retail store. We can think like them, and we can actually simulate that whole process. ChatGPT will probably give you instructions, but the feeling of that user only we can bring in, right? And you can probably revolutionize how you want to innovate the whole process itself, what new things you want to bring in, right? That's where you being human comes into picture. The second point I want to make is, we talked about human in the loop, especially if or education institutions are considering AI as such. I would term a word called faculty in the loop, right? Even if AI is used for assessments, AI is used for curriculum design, all of that, faculty will be the ones who will probably take a final decision as to whether this is correct, whether this is as per the expectation or not. Even the grading, scoring, all of it, right? That becomes very important. Even, till the time we reach a stable state where, AI is probably mature enough. It's really at a nascent stage right now, but till we get there, we definitely need this human in the loop, faculty in the loop, empathy, emotional thinking, all of that.
This is the latest example that I've seen, where the answer sheets have been evaluated by AI. And the professor knows that the students are much better than what the AI was suggesting as a score for the papers. How was that possible? It's because the professor knows the students very well than AI. So that's when the human element which he was talking about came into picture, where the professor knows that these are not the marks which the students would get. And why is AI recommending this? So it is only enabling his work become much more faster, but that element of humanized, like a humanized element, it's inevitable in any result that you pick on. When you type something on ChatGPT also, for a matter of fact sometimes that this is not what I'm looking for. And what is the option it gives you again? Regenerate. Why is it giving that? Because it understands that it is not perfect, but at the same time it also understands that you know a little bit of what you're asking.
Yeah, okay, great. So we have some time to take some questions from the audience. So yeah, students, I would like to ask you first, do you have some questions? Volunteers, can you pass the mic to the student?
Hi, I'm Sudarshan. Since there was a talk on using AI as a tool or an enabler, these days students are not just using AI, they are overusing AI, or rather I'd say misusing AI. For example, if you are getting any case studies or case analysis in classes, people are just uploading it on sites like ChatPDF. ChatPDF will analyze everything. So because of which the cognitive skills, the critical thinking of the students go down. What according to you can be done from the students side as well as the faculty side to make sure this doesn't happen, to make sure the critical thinking of the student doesn't get diminished because of the usage of AI?
The first word I would use is ethics. This is something which ChatGPT cannot teach us. No harm in using it. You rightly said sometimes we overuse them. But that's what I was telling. What is AI doing? If you don't have time, it is only helping you save time. But if you really have time, you can always use AI to compare, like first you read through, then understand what did you understand. Then if you use chat PDF, that's a different issue altogether. And I've seen a lot of times, even till today, when we sit for some case, real-time problem solving, if we really document and put it on chat GPT, it'll give you solutions. But that's not the way the companies work or even your assignments would work. Your professor would know that suddenly you write the case study from ChatGPT, first thing he'll get a shock of his life. How did he write English so well without any grammatical mistakes? Number one. Number two, how can he write it so quickly? Number three, 4 assignments have the same language. That's what I said. I mean, in this world of AI, ethics is very important, and your cognitive abilities, which will only get sharper when you start using that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd just like to add, especially for faculties, just a quick tip, right? You ask the students to explain the rationale. How did they come up with something like that, right? Let's say, take for example, somebody talks about Ansoff matrix. You ask the student to give an example, give more rationale as to how this would happen. Product marketing, ask for demonstration, how this would happen, right? And that instant, if the student is able to do it, yeah, maybe they are really brilliant students, beyond ChatGPT.
Hello, sir. Sir, my question is that AI is the most hottest topic today. Everyone is talking about it and everyone wants to be part of it. There's a lots of hype about this topic. But this is something similar which we see some years ago in 2016 and 2017 with blockchain technology. There was too much hype around it. Everyone is talking about, every company wants to be part about it. But if we see now, the promise we get from blockchain, like we see that it will evolutionize our banking systems and everything, but but I think as the hype gone, the promise is gone. Like it's not as big deal. The technology is there, but it's not as big as we think it. So do you think the AI has the same will we have same faith as the blockchain had? As the hype will gone after 4 or 5 years, AI will become a side toolkit, but not much useful as we are thinking about it.
It's a very brilliant and tricky question. I'll take a stab at it. See, AI is not new. It's been there for years. I would say, I think the first time AI as a word was used way back in 1970s, if I'm not wrong, 60s. So 60s is when it started, right? Right now, why there is a hype a lot about AI, we were doing AI consulting for so many of our customers in the last 2-3 years as well. What has really picked up, or why there is a lot of attention, is only because of generative AI, right? And generative AI is just not about text as such. There's audio to it, there is video to it, there is image to it, a lot of that. And this can fundamentally transform the way businesses function, right? And there is a promise, and it is living up to it in some cases. In some of the companies are already doing it, right? It is improving productivity, it is reducing cost, it is improving efficiency as such. So there's a lot of plus points to it. Of course, given the privacy concerns, regulations, all of that. Even next year, we will probably be still talking about AI. Trust me. Why? Because it is a hype cycle which will live for longer. I mean, generative AI, people are just taking up use cases now. And they just want to explore, if I do it for my supply chain, what would happen? If I do it for my product marketing, what would happen, right? And then they'll scale it up.
You said blockchain is a thing of the past, but if I have to say that, there are few use cases which are still so relevant. Maybe you can, each of you can look at it, how valuable blockchain is for the diamond industry. You need to authenticate the diamond that comes to you is genuine from the source of origin. So there are few technologies which evolve, there are few technologies which subside. We need to understand which one is adding value to particular industry. As I told you, blockchain now is helping banks
and diamond industries. I'm taking two examples. In the same way, for AI also, there are, I mean, like if I really have to, if you have to say which are the industries where AI is adding value now, you would say all. But that might not be the case in the next 5 years. That's what I was telling. There might be another tool which comes into picture, but this will be there. But not at the way or the level at which you think it is adding value as on today.
Unfortunately, we have run out of time, so we will break for tea, and you can grab them for your further questions and answers. Okay, but before that, I would like to invite Professor Animesh Bahadur, our Associate Dean of TAPME Bangalore, to felicitate our guest. Thank you so much, Rohit and Nishant. I think it was very knowledgeable, and we all benefited from as a faculty, as from student point of view. And yeah, thank you very much for coming us here. Okay, and everyone, we will break for tea, and we will come back in 15 minutes. That is by 4 p.m. Okay, thank you.
Saurabh is a serial technopreneur. He's held leadership roles in a variety of well-known companies such as Michelin, GE, Oracle. He's also a successful author of 4 books, and he is alumnus of BITS Pilani and Harvard. Next, very pleased to introduce Mr. Amit Srivastava. He is the DE, Global DE at Fujitsu Consulting and also Fellow at Fujitsu India. He is a well-known speaker at AI events in India and around the globe, and he's considered a thought leader in the area of AI. Last but not the least, Abhishek Trivedi. He is the VP Engineering at Vistaprint, a company that we all know. Maybe some of us have used. I have certainly used Vistaprint, a company that's doing really well. Welcome.
Thank you.
So, thing that caught my attention and interest is that he is a very hands-on engineering leader, so a true VP engineering, so to speak, and very pleased to have this panel. Welcome to all of you once again.
Thank you.
I hope you can hear us properly. Are you able to hear us? Lovely, thank you. So you see, we have a real challenge on our hands, not just from an e-commerce perspective, but from a biological perspective, right? So everyone had some lunch about an hour ago, and now homeostasis has kicked in. So what is happening is you are actually fighting your biological urges while we are going to do something cognitive. Can you imagine how much resource they are going to spend? So our first challenge is to keep you kind of attending this session per se. And you can see almost every dignitary has gone out. You can see what age does to biology. But thank you all the young people who have stayed with us. So thank you big time. So the second challenge we have is we are a sandwich session. You had a session after lunch, and then it is our session, and then there is another session after us. So you know what is going to happen at the end. In a way, you can go home. But right now in this session, you don't know what to do, right? And so we have got a kind of a real interesting problem on our hands, and we are going to deal with those challenges. But at the same time, we are going to use a different kind of session this time, right? There has been a lot of talk about good things about AI, you know, how AI is going to transform and so on and so forth. We are going to paint a full critical picture of AI. That's what our aim is. That's what we want to try and do. And in doing so, you know, what the earlier panel had just said about being critical thinkers. And I think that is what is probably going to be our starting point, from the perspective that, yes, it is okay to use AI to get your essay written up, but you should be ready to bear the consequences of it being found out and you failing the course. And that is very important. And that kind of, you know, so there is a positive side, and every coin has two sides, unlike Sholay. I hope you all remember that, right? Neither I'm too old, I'm really sorry. In some cases, I'm called ancient also when I give pop culture remarks, but what can I say? So our format is going to be a little different than earlier session. What we will have is that all of these amazing experts that we have today with us, they are going to give about a 5-7 minute viewpoint, a perspective note on their views about e-commerce, AI, and very importantly, the aspect called leadership. And then we are going to have a real dynamic discussion. The idea is we prepared some questions, and I guess that would create some thought processes inside you. And we will then use them as a kind of a point of what we call, you know, I guess you've heard about the difference between a plane and a rocket. You know why rocket goes fast? You know, because there is a fire at the particular end, right? And that is how it is. So we want to rocket charge the discussion on leadership. We want to ask some critical and dynamic questions, and you will find us disagreeing on some points, and that is perfectly okay to us. So without further ado, what we are going to do is first Saurabh will provide his viewpoint, and then after Amit, and then Abhishek, and then we will go from there. So over to you, Saurabh.
Sure. Thanks, Paurav. Well, I arrived a little early today morning, around 11:30, and I've been listening these sessions on AI. First of all, very, very informative sessions, and giving you both theoretical as well as the critical view of what the technology is, what the wide landscape of AI holds for all of you, not just in terms of conceptual, but also giving you a flavor of how they get applied in the day-to-day business. So I'm not going to tell anything new here in terms of what AI is. We all know it's artificial intelligence. Okay, there is a word called artificial, and intelligence is something to do with the mindset, right? So something coming as a bunch of information in front of you, it's up to you whether you call it an intelligent information, or whether it is useful for you, or whether you simply discard it and go for the next attempt. So this is how we dissect this term called artificial intelligence. And I was talking to different folks here, and I found that the objective, or say the theme of today's conference, is generative AI. Okay, we all are so much interested going gaga over generative AI, but let me tell you, generative AI is a technology which is there to hallucinate you, which is by expertise generating synthetic data, something which is not real, consuming all things real, but giving out something which is not real at all, and making you believe that it is actually real, and using it again as its input, right? So you need to be fundamentally very, very clear about what generative AI as a technology is, what you are feeding in the system, what you are getting out of the system, and is it really making sense for you in the business or not? So I'm not scaring you at all that what generative AI is. It is something which has already been there, but now of course with the word we are getting in, and Paurav will agree with me, there's a lot of marketing fuel that goes into to make these terms as the buzzwords, and they do hold a lot of meat in themselves as well, and of course the business context. Now coming to the second part of the mindset and leadership, what's the impact of mindset and leadership in making this technology to what they are now and what they will be in future? First of all, these are all very disruptive technologies, and it takes a lot of understanding and a very sound understanding of what this technology can be. So the mindset to accept and to understand these terms is required at a very early stage. We all follow the market trends, we all follow the hashtags prevailing every now and then, but it's important to understand how these technologies will impact me. End of the day, these tech terms, these are the business enablers. They will never be able to, or say, I may be wrong, they will never be able to override what business offers. In the context, or say within the realms of e-commerce, these technologies, these terms hold a lot of value, because you are trying to interact, or we are trying to interact with the end consumers, and consumers are the king. The context, the content for the consumers brings the business end of the day. And whatever it takes, whether it is technology, whether it is marketing or a business model, sound or weak, that the future will decide. But these things, these tech stacks, these technologies play a lot of role in e-commerce. Generative AI specifically plays a huge role in making sure that you are positioned as a relevant, a buyer or a platform in front of the business, in front of the consumer's eyes. Okay, so we will open up these layers more as we proceed further in this session, in this discussion. But I just wanted to give you a hint about these technologies, these tech stacks, and the context of the role of mindset and the leadership in making these technologies the king of the business models.
Brilliant. Thank you, Saurabh. Amit, would you want to take forward? Great.
Hello. let me take it forward from here. So, we live in a world where technology is not acting just as an enabler, but it is also a driver of changes. And this is very relevant in e-commerce, or I would rather say e-business, because e-commerce is just one part of e-business, right? And if you see the way that technology is evolving, it has not left any of the e-businesses field, whether it is e-commerce or e-logistic, e-security, or you take, any e-payment services or anything. So just think from this perspective, like, okay, let me provide one example. There is a startup in Amsterdam called La La Land. I just picked this La La Land word because this is very interesting. People can, relate with. And in La La Land, they are specialized in creating hyper realistic fashion models. And these fashion models can be used to do target marketing or ads. So the companies like big e-commerce companies, they are utilizing the La La Land expertise to target marketing, or maybe target ads for specific people, to the specific people. Let's understand like this. Let's say if I want to purchase a t-shirt or a shirt, and we are two people sitting here, and we went to a same website, like, okay, let's say for an example, website X, and we want to purchase the same t-shirt, but we are not sure whether which one of us should purchase that t-shirt, because the model that we are seeing there in the picture is having of some different body structure, and then different skin tone and color. But let's say for an example, if the e-commerce website is providing such features to us based upon like personalization or customization based upon our body structure, our skin tone, our color, then we'll be in better position to decide whether we should purchase that t-shirt or not. So this is how the e-commerce business can evolve, or in general the entire e-business structure, if you see. Let me just add one statistics here, because this will help you to understand why the diversity and inclusivity is important. There is a study from University of Cambridge, and they found that when Dove started ad campaigns, having diverse models, like diverse fashion models with different body shapes and sizes and different skin color and tones, they found that their sales shooted up to 600% in 2 months. So that's the power of diversity and inclusivity. And if you see this, AI can basically help you to make this on the scale level, because you have generative AI technology. It's not that generative AI is a new technology, because you got introduced with ChatGPT. That's why you think that generative AI is a new technology. I was there in Berlin in Distinguished Stranger Conference in 2018, and I was speaking on generative adversarial network back in 2018. And there is a company in Japan. They were also there. Basically, I got to know about them. It's a data grid company, and back in 2018 and 19, they used to create the fashion models. Although that was into the pilot stage, but I got to know about that capability at that time, that AI can create the entire fashion model as well. Although we used to work on some specific part, but they already have done that. Now we are seeing the extension of that, because you have better algorithm, like advanced algorithm, and now generative AI is one part of the AI ecosystem. So what I'm trying to say is that generative AI is not a new term, at least for the researchers or data scientists or those who are into this field, but probably to the masses it seems to be a very new term, and this got introduced because of the democratization, like ChatGPT democratization. I will provide one more example, because at least millennials like shopping over internet, right? So eBay website, they have almost 1 billion plus item listed. So if you want to search a particular item, it's really difficult. So they have a chat bot called ShopBot, and through that ShopBot you can do smart search. That can even provide you suggestions, can provide you proper recommendation, like robust recommendation, not like in past you used to see those kind of recommendation. And then they can even provide you the navigation path as well. So this is where the e-commerce is moving, if you see from that perspective. So what I feel like, in crux, like this is an era where personalization is not just about providing, expecting, I would say, personalization is not something that is expected from customer, but it is demanded now. where customer engagements are not only about transactions, but it is also about building relationship. And also where the efficiency is not only about the speed, but it is also about the precision. So if you see, this is how AI is evolving, and right now we are, at very starting point, and probably once we, move ahead with the discussion, we will unfold many aspects around that.
That is most amazing, Amit. You have really kind of piled on a next layer to it. So Abhishek, go ahead, enlighten us.
Yeah, thanks, Parav. So, to me, the whole discussion around AI seems to be a little orthogonal. So, for me, AI is most irrelevant in the whole conversation, right? So, if we have to talk about AI, then this audience is wrong, and most of us here in context of a B school are totally misplaced to answer that. Like hardcore AI, we three need to be sitting with in that Berlin conference and maybe talking about it, not in the management school. What you need to look at is the possibilities, right? So consider the age of social media. You got Facebook, you got Instagram, you got TikTok. By the way, TikTok took, Rohit and Nishant were talking about the cycle of 100 MAUs and the time they took. So like TikTok took 9 months to acquire 100. ChatGPT took 2 months to acquire the same, yeah? But what has Instagram, Facebook, and all of that done? It opened up a field known as social media marketing, right? So many people got that job. Now as ChatGPT came in, which by the way I must tell you is the how part. It's not the what part. It's a solution. It's not the what. So we are epitomizing it a lot because it's just getting used. You will have Claude, you will have something else. Believe you me, you will forget about ChatGPT at the speed at which it came because something else newer will come and you will be after that. So the point I'm trying to make is that as the evolution happens, you will come up with new possibilities. And say suppose you have a new idea today, 5 years back or even 3 years back, your ability to basically get that idea out in the market and test it by all yourself as a risk taker was not even a possibility. But if you talk about generative AI or AI in general today, go to Galileo AI, give your concept, gets you a website, go to Blend Now, it's an Indian startup, give your product, it starts giving you a bunch of static posts for you to put on the website. It's so easy for you to go and start doing business now in a digital world. E-commerce has become ubiquitous. It is not to be taught. Chief digital officers is not the term, it's chief disappearing officers because digital transformation has already happened. We were talking about in a conversation about digital natives, right? Like if you're already digital native, what am I transforming? What am I going to transform? You already are there, right? We were transforming the people who were not there. So it is going to open up possibilities. But if you go and apply that as a risk taker to a large enterprise, and I had happened to, actually in the fashion world only, Amit, I happened to be talking to somebody, it's a large European conglomerate, an e-commerce conglomerate in fashion, and they have a fashion AI assistant and they were demoing me the beta version, which is actually powered by OpenAI and somewhat the same tech as ChatGPT. They were pretty excited about it, believe you me. You should have seen the excitement. And then they prompted us, give it a term. So we said, recommend a dress for summers, or I need a summery dress, right? So it started to tell something, and when it was telling, as an assistant, at the same time, it also started to tell, I think so you should be doing this versus that. And the person who was giving the demo started saying, last week this was not so preachy. Today it is very preachy. So believe you me, that's the cognitive ability of the humans, which they know that it is being preachy versus not. AI doesn't have that ability. So ultimately you are going to bank on Darwin's theory only. It's a matter of evolution and it will be survival. You will adapt faster than anything. We are the people who build the technology. So technology can't be in front of us. We need to think ahead of it, and we will, because we know the ability to adapt. And that's the premise on which why we are here, why we are reacting to some things, right? So AI, that's like utilitarian. It's part of the game. It's another technology like smartphone. You know, if you remember, and this is the last statement before I pass it off to Paurav, is like any one of you, if you remember Steve Jobs, 1980, right? He talked about computers. He said, he gave the bicycle metaphor for computers. He said like, computers are like bicycles, right? When the bicycles were invented. Why? Because according to him, it amplifies your power of your brain. Yeah? At the same time, we were opposed of computers, but it was about the fact that it amplifies your power of your brain. So ultimately, it's the power of your brain which is your intellectual property, not the AI itself. Yeah? How you use it, what possibility it opens up, that's what you need to be more aware of, because in those possibilities lie the opportunities.
What an amazing opening statement, and I'm really delighted to hear all the views. In a way, I guess you've heard Saurabh talking about enabling, to Amit talking about driving, to Abhishek talking about challenging it. And I think these are very important aspects that we need to think about. And I'm reminded from that perspective of very interesting things around e-commerce. And Amit said it very rightly. You know, there was this management professor called Ted Levitt who said donkeys years ago, you know, every business is a service business. You know, you're not in products business, you are in service business only. And now, from this forum, you are hearing for the first time, every business is an e-commerce business. And that is what you have to start with. That's your fundamental, that's your grounding. And when we are thinking about that, I'm reminded of technologies, you know. And when new technologies come, they generally tend to surprise us first, then they shock us. Like what Gandhi said, you know, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. And I think something when I think about AI, I tend to see no difference from post office. Post office, when it arrived in early 17th century, it was an enabler, which became a driver, which then became obsolete. Right? Nowadays, courier services probably are moving further forward. And most national post services are almost in dire straits. You look at phones, for that matter, a technology that came, surprised us, shocked us, and then it became second-hand to us. Right? And so what we are seeing with technologies is they continuously evolve. But in evolution of them, they create the challenge for the elite. Because only before post office, only the elite were ready to communicate with each other. You had to be a king or a queen or a courtier to send your message to another king or queen or a courtier. A normal person couldn't do that. Right? When internet came, the same thing happened. Phone was an enabler. It created equity. That's what we say. And in earlier sessions also, some people picked up on it. But they were very positive about it. But what we also see is that in some sense, you know, when internet came, everyone's, you know, Michael Porter and other strategists also said that internet would create such equity that everyone would be on a level playing field. You know, your farmer would send you milk straight to your home, which has become a reality. In a way, I don't buy milk from supermarket, it comes to me now. It used to come before in India also, you know, the Gwala came to our place and delivered the milk, but now a big shop does it. But in reality, what you see is the largest businesses on e-commerce are again unequal. You know, most of your search traffic goes through Google. Most of your product buying happens through Amazon. Most of your auctioning is happening through eBay. So in some sense, while these technologies seem to suggest that they are there for equal opportunities, they are creating equity, the same is being touted for generative AI, that they would create overall equity of opportunity for small business as well as large business and all that. Do you see that happening? Shall we start with Amit, because we ended with you? So, you know, would it create a level playing field, do you think?
I think so. When you talk about creating level playing field, it depends on how large of a market are you talking about, right? There's market for everybody. It depends on what your aspirations are. Yeah. So my wife is an entrepreneur. She's a small entrepreneur. She does healthy cookies. Yeah. And she doesn't want to be the Britannias of the world because her aspirations and ambitions are very different. So from that point of view, at the same time, she can't command the same resources as most probably Britannia, to make it large and big. But she can command enough resources with all the technology to solve her problems. So ultimately, if you're just building technology and then deciding aftermath what problem you're going to solve, you're in the wrong business. You got to first understand the problem. That's why we are here, to understand it. It's the level of understanding of the human beings about a problem which basically drive the fact whether you are in an equal playing field, you're going to displace Apple in the business like it did to BlackBerry, because BlackBerry couldn't, basically, it was a monopoly. It went from 80% to 0%. So there is level playing field is created by humans, and that is determinant from how well you interpret the problem and how well you address it. Those who address it very well and smartly, they do good business. Like I was talking to Parav a minute back, and that has nothing to do with AI, but you may want to go and reconsider and look deep. Taylor Swift. She is going to be one of the first billionaires in the music industry as a musician, which none of the musicians have been able to do it. But that's not just because of her creations. It's because of how she has created a niche by replaying her old scripts and regenerating them and presenting it back to the audience. Like, if you go and read the articles, you will understand the impact on GDP of US because of Taylor Swift, because all hotels were booked, and each of the auditoriums which are empty post-COVID were filled, right? And the stadiums. So how you interpret the problem will determine whether you're going to be a level playing or you're basically going to be left behind in the race. It's again about the fact that how you're going to use all of these things, technology, within technology, AI, within AI, generative AI, draw the chart. This is not all different things. They are the same things in a large gamut of scheme of things which we have, yeah?
Saurabh, Amit, do you want to go ahead, please? Saurabh and then Amit.
Yeah, I think Amit, Abhishek got a very relevant point here, is drawing the charts, okay? AI is never the starting point. Mark these words, AI is never the starting point, and you need to understand it. Whatever the new buzzword comes or new tech fold comes in future, believe me, AI will never be the starting point. Whenever you guys get onto your learning journey also, I would advise, don't start learning AI. Learn what builds an AI system, what are the components required to build an AI system. AI is a system that comes at a very, very later stage. There are a lot of milestones that you need to touch upon before you build an AI system. And number one is to understand the data, okay? Getting the right data in the right format is extremely important, because if you do not have sufficient data, then AI will be as good as you tell apple versus oranges to a small kid, nothing more than that. If you want a system to be so first of all, before I'll take a step back and I'll tell you that AI is a scientific intervention, okay, through a manifestation of a system which you can touch and feel. For example, what Amit said, that Chat GPT is a system where is not a what, it's a how. It's a solution where you can simply type a problem or query in a normal language, English language, and it will give you a result which later you will decide whether it is relevant or not. In the starting, there was not any feedback collection for Chat GPT as well, but now you see that little thumbs up and thumbs down on the right hand side of the outcome, so that they understand that whether did you align with these outcomes, answers or not. So coming back to the point that AI is again is a something which you see and which has to be built in later, but before that you have to go through that journey of building an AI system, understand what the data is, see that data through the lens of your business processes. Is it making sense to you or not? Then measure whether the data is in right quality levels or not. Don't get into that habit of junk in, junk out. Okay, that's a pain. That's a pain for the data scientists, data engineers. You will have the volumes of data. Either you won't be able to connect or establish an association between the data entities, or the data which is looking extremely nice, extremely structured, but irrelevant for you, You might be designing a fashion apparel for females, but you have the utmost quality data available for males, and that won't make any sense for you. So the data in the right quality, ability to establish that relationship, understanding and ability to see the data through the business lens, that's when you think about designing the AI system, understanding and scoping the problem, what are you trying to solve, not something that entire world is solving for you. What makes sense for your business is what you need to decide. So that's the 2 cents which I would add before passing on to Amit on the AI.
Amit, please go ahead.
Let me basically go back to your question. You were talking about equitable, like leveling up. I think let me just focus on that part only. So when we talk about equity, we need to understand in which context we are talking. I think that needs to be clear first. If we are talking about digital literacy, then probably these days, if you see, we are moving towards that equitable journey as well. For an example, I can use ChatGPT, and person sitting in village can also use ChatGPT, and they can learn from ChatGPT also if they know how to use it. So this is we need to understand from where we are talking from the equity perspective. If we are talking from the national perspective, then there will be like in this geopolitical scenario, you will definitely see the digital divide, or the digital monopoly, or I would say rather it is a the colonization, digital colonization, if you see from the national level perspective, because countries like, let's say, India or China or US or Australia and so on, these countries, they have a national policy on AI, and smaller countries, they do not have such kind of national policies, and they do not know how to execute AI systems. In India, we are also talking about creating our own LLMs, right? Many companies are taking this on their hand, that they want to create LLMs. So we need to understand from the context first, like what is our context to basically thinking about leveling up. You cannot level everything. You cannot see everything with a single lens. So I think this needs to be very clear to all of us. How can we utilize it with the maximum potential? Because as I said, contexts are different. So the open source is something that's going to help you. Because see, there will be only few players, those who are going to create the large language models or the big AI systems. Because they have investment, they have the skills, and they have the infrastructure. But if the models are available as an open source model, then probably that model can be consumed by many, and they can create business out of it as well. So as he rightly mentioned that we need to also understand like what are their aspirations. If you have open source and if you want to just utilize it for your small scale business, you do not have to compete with like big players, right? So you know your limitations, right? So we first need to understand the context, our limitations, and then how we are going to utilize the solution. So as I said, equity comes with context, and here definitely we need to understand the context part.
So very, very true, colleagues. What a fantastic reflection in some sense when you think about it. So don't think about that, AI is going to solve all your problems. You will have to solve the problem first, and then AI probably will help you do it a little better. But if you don't understand the context, if you don't have the human capabilities built up, if you have not got the processes built up, no AI in the world can help you in some ways. And that's where my second question comes in. I want brief, sharp answer on this one because we are running into tight timing now, and Rahul is looking at me with those eyes. In some ways, I have a student question from my perspective. And what you've said to me is that, look, don't do AI if you don't understand the problem. So what kind of human capabilities these young managers who are sitting here will have to develop to make sure that in that AI world, they will create a competitive advantage for themselves? So what kind of skills, so if you were to hire tomorrow some of these people, what are the keywords, what are the key skills, what are the key knowledge specifics that you will suggest them that they should focus on?
Yeah, again, it's important for you to have all the information so that you have systems thinking, okay? How many of you have heard about the term anthropic AI? Raise your hands. Anybody? Okay, go look up. It's a good information for you to understand. Amazon just put $4 billion in it. The point I'm trying to make it, what are you going to do as part of us, right? It's a very pertinent and sharp question. policy making will not be done by chat GPT for large conglomerates. We need smart, intelligent minds to do policy making and evolution of a framework of how we apply technology in a utilitarian way in a company and with its business. We need minds to do that, right? Whether it is in the legal context, financial context, marketing context. Any context you pick up, we need those sharp minds to be in the company to define framework, strategy, and the working ethos of using hype cycle technology. Like, for example, we talked about blockchain in the last one. I must tell that blockchain is not out and dead. It's out of the hype cycle into maturity phase. Today, blockchain is used by the winery industry to validate contracts if the wine gets bad due to the temperature going down inside the freight vehicle, thereby giving the penalization and penalty through smart contracts to logistics, right? Do you think that's AI? That's somebody smart sitting in a company devising a strategy of utilizing technology to basically enable success of the business and avoiding leakage and cost repercussions of a damaged good. I mean, wine once damaged, you can't recover it. It's lost. It has to be written off. So it's pretty different ball game. So that's what we need the smart minds for.
Absolutely. Amit, do you want to take on?
Sure. From the skilling perspective, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Where,
skills and knowledge set.
See, I will look if you how much aware you are about a particular technology, because this will show if you are really interested for that particular technology or not. Because see, we all use social media, and you know, if you follow social media, whether it is LinkedIn or Twitter, you see a lot of solutions are floating on the social media. Like people are talking about their solutions, like big companies are talking about their solutions, universities are talking about their research. So even if you are not into AI or not doing hands-on into AI, but if you are aware about these technologies, that what's going around, I think that makes you at least a good candidate to filter out, like, okay, this person is really seems interested into this particular technology. With right guidance, that person can be moved into the AI. And then getting into the AI is a different journey. Like AI is a big word because we use AI as a word, but usually we do data science and machine learning. So machine learning is just a tool, and data science is the entire process. AI is the bigger picture. I think not right time to discuss what is AI. So if you just understand how to connect with the tool, if you understand what's going around you, I think that makes you a good candidate, at least for me, that you are aware about what's going around you. It means that you are attentive, you want to grasp knowledge, and you want to basically discuss on that as well. So I think this is the first step I basically looks for, and then the technology part comes later. I think even people from mechanical department, they also code these days. Civil department, they also code these days. You do not have to be from computer science to code. So this is how the AI will also work. And then there are different fields in the AI. If you want to get into research, if you want to get into data science, or if you want to just be a citizen developer, whether you just want to consume the services, AI-based services, and create applications out of it. So based upon your interest, probably you can put into a specific area as well. Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you, Amit. Saurabh, please go ahead.
Well, I think all the skill sets Amit and Abhishek, both of them have already said. I'll just summarize very sharply and swiftly. Be a human when you are building an AI system. Either you're building it or using it. Don't forget, or say, don't be over reliable, or don't over rely on these AI systems, because there's some people, some human mind has made this. So do not lose your empathy when you are working with AI systems, and do not think that this is the end of the world, because wait for 6 more months, there'll be another term knocking your door and another set of panelists discussing those new terms. So be human, be empathetic when you're working with these smart scientific interventions of AI.
How amazing. Some words that come to my mind now is almost, be curious, I think. It is so important. That's what they are saying. Technology is not the solution. It is you who think about it. I was seeing the logo of the LEADXAI, their lead percentage AI, and the next to it is that little sculpture. You have to remember what actually that sculpture means. The sculpture is associated with a particular phrase, and that is, I think, therefore I am. And I think we start missing out on that particular part. And the panel is continuously saying, have that mindset, that growth mindset, which is so important. I guess we have taken a lot of your time, so probably we'll open. Rahul, do we have some time to open it for discussion? Yeah, we have about 8 minutes, I think, from where we started. So, colleagues, if you have any particular questions for us, I have tons of questions still. I'm like, I've filled this notepad with it.
Do another hour on it.
Absolutely. But yes, please, go ahead. Happy to share with mine.
Okay, I can start with a question if you don't mind. Okay, so what I hear all of you saying in a nutshell is one should be aware of what tools are available, and one should be able to define what your goal is, understand what your goal is, and use the appropriate tool for solving that problem or essentially exploiting the opportunity, right? So in layman's terms, is it fair to say that we are saying that whether you use a paper and pencil, or you use a regular calculator, or you use a scientific calculator, that's the decision as a manager I should be able to make, and then decide, then actually go and invest the money and the resources to either buy the scientific calculator or stuff. Is that a fair summarization of what you're saying?
I would completely agree. I'm sorry, I don't have mic, but you will be able to hear me. I guess you're able to hear me there? Yeah? I should be. I'm quite loud. I have been told by my wife several times.
Quite loud. Two meanings.
Yeah. And so, absolutely right, Rahul. I think one of the things that we see in terms of AI is a lot of people, particularly in marketing, jump on the bandwagon without realizing what they are trying to solve. And so, it is first of all, define your problem, then solve it. Without that, no tool is going to help you. No
Right,
tool.
right. Other questions?
Anybody else has a question? Anybody? Yeah. Yeah, I'll come to you.
Good afternoon to the panel. My name is Ayan, and my question is, what is the role of Gen AI when it comes to hedging against risks involved with e-businesses? What is the role of AI when it comes to hedging against risks that come with e-businesses, especially startups?
Okay, so there are a lot of ways you can address, if you're talking about like challenges in e-businesses or maybe security issues like that, right? So there are a lot of ways to solve this as well, and people are working. So I will get into a little bit of technology. I will avoid it as much as I can. First of all, let's understand like this. If you want to create a solution, you need data, right? Nowadays, you can create very realistic data sets, and through that you can train your model. So you are preserving the privacy of a customer. At the same time, you are running your businesses. So this is first part. Synthetic data can help you with this. The second part is that, let's say, if I want to use a real data set. For an example, let's say data residing on 5 different locations. And as a client, I do not want to share data with you. How can I do machine learning? So there is a technique called federated learning. I'm just using the word federated learning as a word, as a technology. I can do machine learning, on the client devices itself. I do not need data from client device to a central location. What I will do, once I train the model on the client devices through remotely, without accessing and without seeing the data, I will just upload the models to a global server, and then I will create, a global model. That global model can be then circulated or communicated to, all of these clients, and then they can use that global model as a local model without use of internet or without connecting with the internet. So this is how you can also preserve it, and there are various ways to do that. Right now, when we use GPT based technology, for an example, there is a chances for middle in man attack as well. That can also be sorted with a technology called differential privacy. I'm just using the word, I'm not getting to that. Also, there are techniques to identify the hallucination part. We talk about hallucination, right? And through that, you do inject viruses, and you can inject something that is not something that is familiar with the GPT technology, and you try to manipulate the GPT-based system, whether it is Chat GPT or another system. So there is a technique called self-check GPT that tries to tell whether this system is hallucinating or providing some sort of poisonous, content or not, or maybe it is tricking you or not. For an example, for my organization, I will just provide one example from Fujitsu. The current solution that is available in market, I'm not sure, probably it's from University of Oxford or probably some university, I'm not very sure. Like, they try to detect the hallucination and the poisoning part of that. Fujitsu created a better solution that detects 22% better hallucination than any other solution that is available in the market. But yeah, so there are many ways to think about the challenges. The point is that where you are seeing the challenges, and accordingly we have a solution as well. But the problem is that you have limited skills. You have people are basically using this as a monopoly. If I have a skill, I want to contain the solution within myself. So there are a lot of areas we can work. If you just think about the challenges part.
Well, I think regarding the risk, first of all, I misunderstood your question. Your question was how to handle risk while building the AI systems, but I was initially assuming that it's where all AI system can be used or cannot be used. That was the context which I was having. So I think the risk part is something that is very use case specific. It's not something that I can lay down the principles of risk handling in AI system. There are, but they are very generic and mostly applicable around say 80 or 90% of the cases, mostly infrastructure related, data related. But when it comes to the business risk, that has to be handled at the use case level. Okay. For example, federated computing and edge computing, there's a lot of link-based devices that come. These are all infrastructure related risks which can be mitigated. But end of the day, when the outcome of AI systems will impact or will have a direct or indirect impact on your business, that is where the separate risk assessment has to happen. In my personal experience, every time whenever there is a rollout of an AI system which will impact, so first of all you need to know that what is the surface area of the impact going to be with this AI system. If yes, if it is huge, if it crosses certain number, then there has to be a steering committee that will approve the positioning of that AI system. And for that steering committee to work efficiently, you need to list down how many risk assessment we are going to do. Once all those go green, then only the AI systems will be promoted for the final, or say to the production purposes. So there's no one single specific correct answer to this question, but what we need to understand and keep in the back of the mind is, any AI system should not be promoted without proper risk assessment in the context of business as well as the industrialization of the AI systems.
Do we have time at all?
Yeah, I think we can take one more question.
Okay, so building on to the example that was used about the AI fashion models, and on the surface it seems like a good step towards diversity and inclusivity, but I feel like isn't that actually taking away jobs from like models of color and minority models? So I feel like there exists a gray area where companies can use AI to give the impression to the public that they're doing something innovative or inclusive, but maintain some unethical practices behind the scenes. So how do we as future business managers, but also consumers, navigate that gray area?
I'll provoke them even further, right? So here's a little thing, right? So imagine you are a manager and you are in a fashion business, and then somebody asks you that, hey, you are doing this unequal thing to model. We talked about equity question, and now here's the question: you are a manager,
and you have to take a decision on that ethical AI. But remember, your mortgage, your car, your income, your family depend on it. What decision would you take? So, how do we deal with the ethics of AI?
Well, I'll not add much more details, but before turning technologist, I was a psychologist practitioner for quite some time. And so now whenever I see an AI problem, I have a different, that tussle going in my brain, whether to solve it with technology where I just don't care about what humans think or what impact it will have on the human capital, versus what it will lead us to. Okay, so the question that you asked and the way Paurav articulated it, now this is a proper tussle that happens, that whether to use all these available commercial tools which will help you do AI very, very quickly without even thinking that whether it is impacting someone's job or someone's life or someone's thought process. This is, I would say, this is a wave which goes through very common, and this is, if you know generative AI, there'll be generators and distractors. So these are the distracting waves that are very, very prevalent, and they will always be there. I wouldn't say that anyone is taking away the job. It is only making you more smarter to take up more challenging tasks. But whenever there's a question or a dilemma on the ethics part, make sure you take the right call. Make sure the impact, if it is on the negative side, it should impact the least possible person, people, and the society. So that's where I would put my closing argument for.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that question, I think so, you put it in context of AI, and Paurav did try to provoke that a little bit more. Those problems will exist even when you are laid off, by the way. Your mortgage, your bills, everything will exist. Even when the business model goes bonkers, you are laid off because of restructuring, whatever it is. I agree with Saurabh on the point that you should have some core ethics which you should be taught, you should imbibe by. There are certain principles in life you will live by, and they are not to be hijacked by anybody. In large companies, it is corporate governance. In smaller companies, for the essence of speed, we do move fast in certain cases, but assess the impact. You should have the right to basically question it, and if you think it's not an environment, it is toxic, everybody has an option at the end of the day. So it's very important to understand. If you remember a couple of minutes back, I had talked about anthropic AI. Anthropic AI exactly deals with this thing, and it's of the top 3 things which are being discussed as of now to basically do research on the ethics, policy making, and how to make AI much more, inclusive in nature to work with the society, right? Some of these questions will remain fundamental to us.
Thank you. I think we are on the top of the hour, so this will be all for the questions right now. I'd like to invite Professor Tapas Mishra on stage to felicitate our panelists. All right, thank you all. Thank you for being a great audience, and a big thank you. And let's hear it for our panelists once more. Thank you.
So that brings us to the last, panel discussion for the day, right? I would request the audience to please settle down so that we can have Professor Animesh take the dais and start the next session. Thank you.
So from the morning, we have been listening about obsolescence of technology being very fast in the age of AI. We have also talked about a lot about the issues and challenges as far as AI is concerned. But towards the end of this session, we started talking about ethics and longevity. The whole day, we talked about what are the moralities of AI and, of course, the longevity. So this is the apt session to look into the fact that there is something sustainable. There has to be something which lasts long. And towards that, we have a very august panel to discuss on the issue of sustainable leadership in the context of AI. If I have the permission from Mr. Singh, can I change the format? I will call all the panelists first and then introduce them. Okay, so may we have Mr. Prakash Shetty, Mr. Avikshat Bhushan, Mr. Naresh Chowdhury, Mr. Nakul Sharma, and Mr. Srimant Chaman. Yeah. Sorry? Okay, okay.
And we are sitting in the same orchestra.
What I would suggest is the coordinator can sit. So it's my pleasure to introduce you, but I also know the paucity of time. And to optimize on the time for the discussion, I will keep the introduction very, very brief. So I'll start with the coordinator for this particular session, Mr. Prakash Shetty, who comes with almost 2 decades of experience. Currently the VP at Accenture, and he heads the data analytics part of it. A physics graduate, interestingly, who has advanced, of course, qualifications in data analytics also. And he will be coordinating today's discussion. He is responsible currently for defining and creating data-driven insights, and is, of course, involved with many businesses. Then he, as I said, it's almost 20 years of experience he comes with. Before he was with the Accenture, he worked for several years with JP Morgan Chase, mostly in FinServ industry. Then we have Mr. Avikshat Bhushan, VP and Aerospike, and the GM of Asia Pacific and Japan area, APJ area. He has a passion for working with leaders to find solutions to their AI-related problems. He is an IMB graduate and, of course, a bachelor's in engineering. He won the Global Sales VP Award in 2023, and he has a lot of years of experience before this company in IBM. Then we have Mr. Naresh Chowdhury, Vice President Quality and Productivity at Infosys, again with 20 plus years of experience. This 20 plus includes almost 4 years in manufacturing also, and then of course taking advanced cases in Infosys as a company. He has been working in areas of setting direction, identification and deployment of tools, and apart from having an engineering degree, he also has a certificate from Stanford University. Then we have Mr. Nakul Sharma. Yeah. So again, he comes with over 16 years of experience and currently Associate Director at Ernst & Young. Setting, delivering, transforming processes using digital tools, that's his work. He has also been involved with companies like TCS and Genpact. And of course, last but not the least, Mr. Shamant, with over 25 years of experience. Engineer by qualification, but has been one of the winners of, winner of several people-related awards, HR-related awards, the latest being the ET NHRDN 100 Great People Manager Awards in 2023. He is dealing with the issues of new and emerging business at Rakuten company. Right, so the floor is yours. Sir, please talk over. Thank you.
Hello, am I audible? Okay, thank you. Good evening, all. I would like to thank for the amazing welcome and the hospitality that was provided. Right, so thank you for that. So it was really amazing. I know this is the last session of the day, so it's very hard to keep our eyes open, and I'm sure everybody wants to run for a nice dinner and cocktail, but we'll try to kind of keep it as engaging as possible. And we learned something from the last panel, right? So we have changed the format slightly now. So what we're going to do is we will share our viewpoints, right? And then probably we'll open up for the floor, right? And then probably kind of, have more questions if required. I want to kind of put a disclaimer there, right? So sorry for that. These are my personal opinions, and it's not the company's opinion, the Accenture that I work for, right? So I just want to put a disclaimer there. I want to start with saying attention is all we need, right? And really at this point in time, attention is all we need, right? So one aside, right? So there was a paper in 2017 with the same title called as Attention is All We Need. And this was one of the paper which kind of really revolutionized the Gen AI capability, right? So it kind of really pushed. And now I feel that, Gen AI is something that requires our attention, leadership attention, to kind of take it to a more sustainable future, right? And we've seen a rapid growth, and a lot of industry wants to kind of employ Gen AI. But as a leader, I think it's our responsibility to ensure that we are able to kind of ensure the sustainability, and then kind of looking into a lot of other factors as well, right? Because we are not looking, we need to look at the environmental impact that is bringing. We need to look at the data privacy issue, right? So we need to look at the people aspect. So a lot of these things are things that need to be kind of looked into when we start implementing, right? So I was hearing somebody saying that, everything doesn't start with AI in the earlier panel. That's true. But I think AI will be part of our life, right? Because it's not that AI will replace us, but AI is something that will augment what we're doing. So that is how we'll have to live. It is what we call as a human plus machine now, right? So with that, I would like to kind of pass on my mic to Shaman to kind of share his views.
Thanks for setting the context. So just to add on to that, in fact, I think the context came in terms of responsible leadership. And primarily we have been talking about AI. The way I would like to put it across is when we talk about AI, it's both a boon and a bane as well. So especially with the AI getting into the hands of the right people, I think it's more of probably enables to contribute back to the society in a very effective manner. But on the contrary, if probably gets into the wrong hands, then I think you could see, some of the geopolitical turmoils that has been happening currently. So I think when we talk about the topic of today in terms of the responsible leadership around this particular subject, it's not just in terms of a leadership ecosystem that needs to be brought in. I think it also becomes the ethical responsibility of each and every individual who has been associated with particular ecosystem to morally see how they can contribute back to the society in a positive manner. And I think that can only come in through more of an effective collaboration, both with industry, academia, and also with the geopolitical ecosystems that have been there. And I think with this, I think I would pass on to my next panelist so that they can add on to the context.
I'll use this one. So I think since morning, everyone's been hearing AI. But just a quick quiz, and I did speak about this outside while I was talking to a few of your colleagues or few of your fellow students. What's the total investment in AI? And this is a research done by Forrester. What's the total investment in AI in say about 2022? We're in 2023. But 2022, does anyone have an indication in terms of what's the total investment across the world, of course, not a particular company? Any guess? Any wild guess? Okay. It's about $25 billion that were invested around across the world in 2022. And Forrester thinks, or Forrester put across in its paper that by 2025, AI investment across the world would be around $65 billion. Now, with that comes a lot of data. With that comes a lot of integrity issues. And I think as responsible leaders, one of the most important elements that any organization, any firm that is currently working upon through their solutions, through their AI solutions, is how do you ensure that data integrity is there, consent is there. I'll talk about, let's say in Europe. So Europe, everyone knows EU. They are trying to come up with a framework wherein some countries in EU think face recognition is allowable, but some countries don't want face recognitions to happen. In India, the government is equally looking forward to come up with certain regulations. At certain point in time, somewhere in April, May, they said no regulations required for AI. In May, June, they did a 180-degree turn and they said, no, we want regulations for AI. We want regulations for Gen AI. In the US, they are still trying to figure out whether regulations should be there for AI, not be there for AI. So in terms of the whole, the integrity of data and how to protect data for its own population, for its own citizens, is one of the biggest challenges that anyone and everyone is currently facing. And I think that is, as a leader, one of the biggest challenges that I foresee a lot of companies today are facing. Naresh, do you want to add?
Thank you. I think great opening comments from my co-panelists. So there are two important things I want to share before I hand over to Avik. One, very clearly, I think all of this, if you really land it, it is all about trust, and trust in the model, the AI models, right? Different forms of AI models, trust in the data, and trust in the process. And I think every leader, every company today is grappling with how do you make sure that this quote unquote trust across all of these dimensions is upheld in every single thing that you do. Whether it's a business application that you're actually running, whether it is something, a service that you're providing to your customers, or it is products that you are actually building. So that's very fundamental in all of this. And this becomes more complicated as you get into the tech aspects of it, right? Whether you're using open models, you're using closed models, do you have provenance of data? Do you know where the models were trained, how they were trained, whether the data had inherent bias of different kinds, right? For example, a lot of the COVID-related simulations that were happening initially were done with data from the Western world. And if you apply the same simulations in India, you are going to create a faulty vaccine. It will cause deaths. It will cause life risks. So that's what we are talking about. In some aspects, it could become as critical as human life, not just financial losses and things like that. So having a human in the loop, ensuring that the factor of trust is upheld, is very, very critical. And I think every leader, every company is grappling with this, right? The second important thing is, and I think all of us come from the same industry in a way, this industry actually was always a step ahead of the government. In India, for example, and fortunately, right, the government never came in the way of IT. If it had, perhaps we would not have had the growth in IT that we had. In this case, perhaps, right, it has to go hand in hand. The industry and the government, right, the regulators have to work hand in hand to create the right regulations and create the regulations which are perhaps not going to be restrictive for innovation. Because if the regulations are not thought through, if they are not created with the right sight in mind, right vision, it might throttle innovation. So I think these are two important facets that I wanted to lay out before I hand over to Abhi.
Thank you, Naresh, and everybody else on the panel. First of all, it's great to be here amongst the students out here. A couple of comments to start with, right? I think from your perspective, if you look at this topic, I think it's extremely relevant because you're in a market today which is, just in the sense of what are we doing with data today. Clearly, if at all anywhere on the planet today you have this level of innovation, digital innovation, India is the market to be, right? It could be, and you heard on the ONDC stuff that's happening in India today, but across the length and breadth, right? So what it means is there is data being collected across the board of all of us. Parallelly, there is this DPDP Act that was recently introduced in the Parliament, which ensures that it's consent-based and so on and so forth, right? Be that as it may, I think sustainability as an issue, and we're talking of multiple things here, right? One is the AI part, second one is sustainability. Sustainability is here to stay. I work with a lot of companies across Asia Pac and specifically in India, and what we find is a big change now is it is one of the key initiatives in every organization, right? I mean, with the goal that the Indian government has taken to make sure that we are net zero by 2070, every organization today, at least in the 4 or 5 key things that they're working on, sustainability is a key thing. Which means it's no more a CSR activity. I mean, typically in the past 10 years back, it was people who do it as a CSR activity. It was not a strategic thing. Today, it is a point of differentiation. If you are not looking at sustainability and using data in the right ways, you're going to be, you've seen it in multiple industries. You've seen it in payments. You've seen it in things like stock brokerages. People who are nowhere in the market today are market leaders. So unless and until you look at optimizing for the data that you have, and optimization in multiple ways, right? I mean, invariably, regardless of which industry segment you're in, it is a given that data is going to play a very critical role. Now, if the cost of acquiring the data, and to Naresh's point about data equity and also making sure that data is not partisan in some sense, right? That means collection of data becomes very important. How do you collect data, in a society like India where you have such disparity involved, right? You got to make sure that data collection starts in a very, in a way in which you can make sense of the data. And I think with the kind of integrations that are happening across the board with what NPCI is building and so on, you have layers out there where data is getting collected in a consent-based way. And what is happening as part of that is when companies are building platforms on top of it, it has to be in a very efficient way. So the tools and technologies that companies choose become very critical. And obviously, when we talk of any kind of a transformation, be it from an AI perspective, otherwise, there has to be a buy-in from the organization. And what we find is, unless and until people, processes, and technology, of course, are aligned, it becomes extremely difficult for anybody to embark on an AI journey, regardless of what kind of, something very strategic as AI. And I think companies who do it well, they look at it from a complete perspective, right from defining the strategy to making sure they have data collection, to making sure they have tools and technologies out there, and a culture change that helps in adoption of these technologies. And the use cases, obviously, we'll talk about in more detail, but right from the B2C services that all of us are using on our mobile phones today to everything on the market, to fraud, to things like behavior analysis, to making sure that what you are looking for is what is offered and so on, recommendation engines, so on. Everything involves data. So I think it's a very critical question, and we can go on to the next question if there's anything around that.
Hello. Okay. Yeah, I think wonderful opinions from my co-panelists, right? So I think it was enlightening. So what we'll do now, right? So instead of kind of going to another question, we'll kind of go to the audience so that we know they are awake and they can ask us some questions, and post that we can kind of answer a few more.
So any questions related to this topic or in general about the AI issues we are talking about? Yeah, sure.
Should I take? So, see, from a sustainability standpoint, right, so we'll always look at the long term, but what needs to happen, right, so if you talk about Gen AI, right, you'll have to start looking at the lower hanging fruits, right, so where you can kind of make the maximum impact first, right, so that should be your short-term strategy. Your longer-term strategy is how you kind of incorporate all those as part of your process, but that should also come at the cost of training your team, right, because that is very important. Upskilling your team and making them leverage AI and kind of use that is very important from a long-term sustainability. Otherwise, what will happen is that you'll have a workforce which is not skilled to kind of work on the new technologies, and there'll be a big gap of resources.
I think it's a nice question. So the way I would like to put it across is AI is always an enabler. But when you look at an organization, of course you have a multitude of functions, and as a part of that it's important to identify maybe a digital transformation that you want to bring in. So I think as a leader, when you're probably dissecting your organization, and probably you could identify couple of transformational initiatives that you want to bring across. It could be probably in the business per se, or it could be across the functions that is actually getting driven. Now when you're talking about short term and long term, so when you probably talk about a digital transformation, then next comes upon the transformation journey. And as a part of a transformation journey is probably you're getting into slicing and dicing in terms of what is it that you want to achieve as a part of your short-term goal, a mid-term goal, and a long-term goal. So when you talk about goals, this could be like something that you want to achieve probably in the next 6 months or so, and a near term could be say about 2 to 3 years, and long term could be about 5 years. Here you can actually look at what kind of AI interventions that you would probably need to bring in order to achieve those particular goals across. So that's, I think, the way I would put across is when you talk about sustainability, don't look at it from an AI perspective. Look at it from an intervention that you want to bring in, probably through a transformation journey. AI becomes an enabler, and that enabler is the one that you would be leveraging in order to achieve your sustainable goals. Is the way I would like to put it across, and I'd like to hand over to my fellow panelists.
So, couple of things that I would want to say over here. Excuse me. One is, so Avik mentioned about ESG being a differentiator. I think it is. But if you look across the world, you've got different regions. You've got the Americas, you've got Asia Pacific, you've got Europe, you've got Oceania, all of these other various regions. Now, do all of them have this as the priority? And what is the component of the pie? And when I say the pie is the budget. Okay, so every organization has an annual fund that they invest on ESG. So they also do on transformation. They also keep a pie aside for transformation. Now from a long-term and a short-term perspective, short-term transformation, yes, everyone wants it. But from a long-term perspective, where do people invest their dollars in? And I think that is the differentiator nowadays that is coming through. That is AI something that we need to invest from a long-term perspective? Do we need to put most of my transformation budget? And the transformation budget generally varies between 8 to 20%. Now, do I put my 20% on transformation? Yes, but 20% on AI? I don't know. That's something that only time will define, because today we are in the very nascent stages of AI. The Gen AI, the generative AI, we are just at the use cases element. I think the actual benefits of Gen AI should start flowing in the next 2 to 4 years. And once the advantages or the benefits start flowing in, then people will start realizing what is the component of the pie that needs to go in or do I need to invest to develop these kind of technologies in-house, or go to any alliance partners to buy more components that would be useful for my organization. I think that is what I would say from a short-term and a long-term perspective.
So great question, first of all. So two facets. One, I think what is long-term and what is short-term? If you go to a startup today, and I'm sure many of you will actually create your own companies, right? Short-term and long-term definitions could be very different. You go to Avik's previous company, IBM, it's a 100-year-old company. My company is a 40-year-old company. I have spent 2.5 decades in the company, right? So the definition of long-term and short-term can be very different depending on who you are speaking with, right? It has to be about how some of these are embedded in the company's strategy making processes, right? So if you look at real long-term, then actually you only go back to institutions like the church, a lot of the religion and those kinds of stuff, right? So that's true long-term, right? Thousands of years of heritage and history and all of that, right? But in our context, in the world of professional, corporates, etc., long-term and short-term could be what perhaps, Shamant was speaking about, right? 2-year, 3-year, 5-year time horizons. I mean, those time horizons also, whether it is AI or not, yesterday there was cloud, today there is AI, tomorrow there is going to be quantum. So you can't dictate tech or tools to sort of, drive strategies in the long term. It has to be something that you use as an enabler, as a mechanism to sort of drive your plans and processes ahead, right? But this is something that has to be embedded in the strategy making processes by way of, for example, at Infosys we are saying, can Infosys as a large company with 300,000 people organization behave like a startup which perhaps is with 30 people? And when I say behave as a startup, the agility that is required for decision making, right? The speed at which you can actually make changes, the speed at which you can adapt, if that is embedded in the strategy making process, then you have the ability to adapt to anything that changes around you. Yesterday's cloud, today's AI, and tomorrow's quantum, you can deal with it, right? The second thing is being responsible by design. Very, very critical. If you are looking at sustaining some of these things for the longer term, then being responsible by design becomes a mandate, which means whether it is security, whether it is privacy, or whether it is AI, right? Are you being responsible by design? Which means you're baking all of this into all your processes, all your decision-making systems, and ensuring that there is a human in the loop in everything that you are doing, whether it is AI or anything else, right? I think that's what would be my perspective.
Great points by everybody. Let me talk of an example here, right? A use case, right? So before we talk of that, one quick thing, right? I think the world is moving towards the short term today, right? Everything you're talking about today, right? If you look at real-time decisioning, which is a very, very strong AI use case, it's about taking a decision at this point of time, depending on what you're seeing. So everything, you can't even estimate what's going to happen in the next 3 or 4 years, right? So what happened during COVID, if you look at that as a case study, right? All of a sudden in 2021, the day people realized that offices are going to be shut down, everything is going to be a different world. Imagine the kind of impact it would have had on sectors like telecom industry, right? Telecom industry was immediately affected in a big, big way. The demand patterns that people would have been used to, all of a sudden got changed to, from their offices to homes. So the telecom industry, within a span of few days, they had to literally make sure that use cases were defined and built for people whose demand patterns changed. Towers had to be set up, whole bunch of things. And obviously, without access to your mobile phones and ability to transact online, we would have been toast. Nothing would have happened. I mean, thanks to the delivery agencies, people who made sure that we were up and running, groceries and so on, everything worked seamlessly. We might take it for granted today, but it wouldn't have happened without the backbone of the telecom industry. And talk of short-term, long-term, unless you have platforms, the technology platforms out there and obviously processes and people to be able to drive that, if it is not agile enough to be able to happen in a quick span of time, it's of no use. So it's okay to build something for 10 years, but today's world is not for 10 years. Today's world is for the next day. You don't know what's going to happen. So you better make decisions. The kind of technologies you buy, the kind of tools that you have. So as an example, if you don't have access to, you can make a decision based on data which is recent or historical. But sometimes having access to large volumes of data in real time becomes very, very important for the right decision. So the telecom industry, and you can look at any vertical, and I can give several examples there. But I was working very closely with these telcos in India, and they were able to build those solutions in real time because they had access to that information, because they had access to all our information, and they could build it in real time. So to your question about short term and long term, I think long term is great, but unless and until you have platforms in there that can help you in the short term, it's not going to work in today's world, unfortunately. Great question, by the way.
Any other audience questions? Yeah.
So I think it's a great question. Like Avik was saying, I think what is driven, the whole strategy of AI is driven through the culture. I think there needs to be a strong culture within the organization, within the firm, and even Naresh over here alluded to that. There needs to be a culture, there needs to be ethical culture, there needs to be ethics, there needs to be boundaries defined. You need to know to what level consent is required. Now, these are all good things, but these are all difficult things also to achieve. You can't change culture, like they say, culture eats strategy for breakfast, whatever it is. But that's how difficult things are to change. Now, Cambridge Analytica, yes. What was the culture? It was doubt. Everyone can have their own doubts over there. But the firms that we work in, some of the firms that everyone over here works in, have strong culture from that perspective. I think that is what holds responsible leadership as opposed to irresponsible leadership, I would say.
Yeah, quick point. I think it's a great question. See, I think that the two things, right? One is, I look at it from a perspective of data, where I come from, right? So it's extremely critical that the regulator and government play a proactive role in today's world. They can't play a reactive role, meaning let's see what happens, right? So I think in that sense, what is happening in India, and I work all across APJ, and I can tell you that what is happening in India is definitely not happening in other parts of Asia Pac. In that, not only are we setting infrastructures in place for interoperability between platforms, which is brilliant to start with, but also from a regulatory standpoint, there is a lot of checks and balances. I mean, obviously, RBI has always gotten a lot of slack for being extremely conservative, but look at it, right? 30% of the funds are kept for CRR and SLR and so on. But beyond that, what is happening with the regulator today is mind-blowing, right? The kind of initiatives that they're driving, and also parallel to that, the laws that are getting enforced with DPDP and so on, right? You are making sure that you're getting into a world where, unless I can not only give consent, but I can give consent for a certain period of time. I can say, I want my data to be available for this particular organization for 3 days. Likewise, if I go to the fintech perspective, I can just give you an example, right? Today, if a loan has to be provided to somebody, unless there is, the whole concept now is that of an account aggregator. So the account aggregators have access to information, but they don't have visibility of that information. They can sell it based on your consent to a bank who wants to give you a loan. So I think we are very lucky that we are staying in a country where today, not only are the regulator and the government being very proactive, but also laws are getting enacted which are supporting them. And obviously the whole ecosystem has to play, the private sector also has to play a very critical part. We are actually lagging behind in terms of some of the initiatives that the regulator is driving. But I think to your question, right, there will always be that kind of companies that will exist in the market. It's for all of us to be responsible. It's for the regulator and government to be careful. Unless otherwise, there'll always be people who will come out with something creative there.
Yeah, it's a very good question, right? So it kind of, you completely flip the whole agenda itself. But as I said, right, so there's always a two sides of a coin, right? So what we can do with the culture, with the government, all these things, right? So we can try to, and with education as well, because that's very important. And this is what we're doing today, right? So kind of educating our upcoming leaders to kind of see how responsible they can use AI in future. That's the best you can do. But if I have to give an example, right, and it might be the worst example, drone. It was supposed to be a lifesaver, right? It was supposed to kind of do a lot of good things, but see, look at what's happening, right? So, and how some of the governments are using it to destroy life. So yeah, as I said, right, so it's both sides of the coin. So we can do our best, right? And government can do their best, and all of us, that's what I would say.
I think two important, great question, by the way. There is a culture part, but I think your inherent values. And if leaders require government laws to sort of guide them in their decisions, I think we have already failed, right? as a leader, my team knows that I'm always going to be fair, right? And that comes from role modeling. I have seen leaders at Infosys do this all the time, right? Every decision, everything, every transaction. Are we fair? Is there integrity, right? This is ingrained. So nobody needs to teach me this at this level, right? Maybe I need to teach it to somebody who's joining Infosys today. That's the first thing. Second thing, I have a family back home. Every evening when I go home with a clear conscience. That conscience is the softest pillow that I have. So the 6 or 8 hours that I sleep is on that pillow of clear conscience. When my kid asks me, Dad, what do you do? I want to be able to hold my head high and tell her or him, this is what I do, this is the company I work for. If every single one of us looks at ourselves as a professional and on our personal sphere, that these are the people we are accountable for, I think, you have chosen the right leaders.
Okay, so I think it's a good question because I think it's going to impact all of us over here in this room. It is very important to understand that upskilling and reskilling oneself is my own responsibility. There will be disruptions coming through, and disruptions will come as it is normal. It is normal to expect disruptions to come and hit all of us at a very regular frequency going forwards because things are moving so fast. Most of the organizations and the firm that I also come from encourage people to learn about new technologies. We also have a lot of courses happening on AI and other technologies. We have partnerships with firms like Udemy and Coursera's where you can learn and reskill yourself. And I think that is what, as responsible organizations, and of course I'm extrapolating leaders to organization over here, is they give that platform and the opportunity for everyone to upskill themselves. I think that is the need of the hour, and someone who thinks that he or she can actually live with the skills that they have now in the next 5 years, I think it's difficult to sustain that particular thought process going forwards.
Yeah, and a quick point on that, right? Great point, Nakul. So a couple of things, right? When you talk of generative AI, like you said, right, a lot of it is going to be repetitive tasks, right? That is going to get taken over by the bots or whatever, right? But it's not new, right? It's been happening for the last hundreds of years, really, right? Even if you look at our times, more recently, right? Even our scheduling, all that used to be done by ourselves, or we had a secretary, somebody used to do it for us. Today it's done by the same device. The same device does your calls, does everything for you. So has it taken over our task? No, it's actually made us better individuals. I think to what was just mentioned by Nakul, right? We got to keep ourselves ahead of the curve. As students out here, you got to keep yourselves ahead of the curve right throughout your career. I think all of us, we might have learned so many times throughout our lives. It's something that you constantly need to do. And regardless of whether there's a bot coming in or not, that is something you got to do any which way. As organizations, if you were to look at it, then these kinds of bots are going to augment what you already have. It's not going to do something, at least at this stage, the way I see it, generative AI is still not the creative element is still a long, long way to go. What it does a great job of is it gets you, it mines the best information for you. It knows how to mine stuff. Can it write a beautiful painting that is better than what we already have? Can it build something better than the Taj Mahal? Maybe not right now, right? So at this stage, we got to be worried about the repetitive tasks. If a bot is doing it, it's good for everybody, I would think. So nothing to be worried about.
Just on the same context, I think glad that you brought about the context of the bot. So since you talked about HR and the L&D, I think I would like to bring in the HR aspect to that. Now, especially when you talk about, I mean, any organizations go through that particular appraisal cycle. And appraisal cycle, we all know, I mean, it takes up a couple of months, and I think it's going to be a turmoil time for the leader as well as for the people who also go through that particular appraisals in the right spirit. But especially what is the way the AI component has also been changing across is feedback mechanisms. The feedback mechanisms, unlike earlier, I mean, today, if you talk about a feedback mechanism, I think nobody has the patience to wait for 6 months. You have an appraisal cycle and then you start giving a feedback. The way the VUCA world is changing and the way the things are transcending, both from an engagement or from a business perspective, it is not possible for someone to wait for that long and then start giving up a feedback. Now this particular feedback mechanisms have also gone through a level of an automation where you do have bots coming in. I think and a couple of them which I can recall out is there's something called Amber. So these are basically bots where we did talk about repetitive tasks. So it's like a repetitive mailers that also come down to the individuals across the organization where they would be asked to give candid feedback, and these are anonymous feedbacks. Anonymous feedbacks about something which could be relating to an engagement, relating to a leader, or relating to an individual, or for an organization in terms of what kind of improvements need to be brought in, or these could be constructive feedbacks, or of course these can be some anonymous feedbacks. Now this is completely driven through the bot system. So what is happening is this is also leading to an aggregation of the data in terms of insights that are coming in more in a real time, because these are more system driven rather than individual driven. So in that way, when you look at from an AI perspective, what has your HR function changed? As an HR, of course, probably the individuals are still, they are engaging with the employees and the employee fraternity, but the AI has come as an enabler, and in this case it is basically a bot which is also giving you more of a real-time insights in terms of what employees feel or how the employees' connectivity is there with an organization, and that again connects back to the culture, because at the end of the day you will have to transcend this back through the culture, and that's where any organization, because I come from a Japanese organization, having spent about 25 years in a Japanese organization, there it's more of a people first practice and the culture. Then you follow up with your strategy and the business that comes in. So culture, primarily through this data aggregation that happens, it is again remodeled back in terms of how you can design your culture practice. Inculcate is a part of an L&D, because L&D is again a top-down and both are bottoms-up, but culture is something that has to be strongly driven as a top-down across the strata, be it not just at a leader but also at the middle management, the lower management, to the last employee who could even come in as an intern. So primarily this is what the AI is enabling. So the repetitive, of course the tasks have got automated, data is becoming more real time. This is also leading to understanding what kind of L&D practices that one can bring in as a part of cultural incorporation, and this is actually how the AI is augmenting the HR and the L&D practice, just to give an insight into it.
So just a quick two-line. Yeah, so quick two-line. So Chanchal, good question by the way. So I think it boils down to what we call as a learning organization, right? So if you're starting your own company, I think you should start it with the ethos of creating a learning organization. If you're joining one, then join a company which is a learning organization. And what do I mean by that? Where learning is continuous, right? Which means it's not something that you join, learn, you're trained, and then you're put on the job saying, training is over, now go and do the job. right? Learning is continuous. Second thing, you are encouraged to adapt practices that you learn from whatever you are trained on, apply them, take risks. Risk taking is encouraged, experimentation is encouraged. That keeps you to be continue to be curious, right? We were all born curious, and then some say, I'm sorry, education killed the curiosity, right? Hopefully not here, right? So how can you be curious? How can you continue to be curious? That only happens if you are in a learning organization, right? Or the ecosystem is that of a learning organization. So AI or anything else for that matter, if you can continue to be in an ecosystem which actually allows you to be in that learning ecosystem or a learning organization, I think you are going to have a very good time.
I'm always afraid of HR, right? So I'll be politically correct here. So see, I think, in terms of repetitive jobs going, right? So it will happen across all the sectors, right? So HR is no different. But how you use it is important, right? So today, I feel HR is one of the thankless jobs that they do, and they're most important function within an organization, right? But they need to be kind of more connected to the people and less kind of doing some of those repetitive tasks, right? And that is where you can really use Gen AI to kind of help you, right? And one of the examples that I can say is sorting through the resumes, because that's one area where there is a high chance of you missing out a very, very good candidate because you have almost gone through 100 and you don't have a capacity to do that, right? So obviously that should not be a job, right? So obviously that's where AI should help you, and then you should be kind of in more connecting to the people and helping. So yeah, I think, as I said, it will happen across, but how you use it is important, right? How you make this an enabler, as Shaman said, is very important, right? And how you work with that.
So you'll always have these new things come up. I think it's something in today's world, it's given that every year you'll have something new coming up. But generative AI hopefully is going to be there for the long term. But I think, putting in place, the last thing you want to do as a leader is to go and say, okay, this is the next big thing, let me do this and walk away, right? We see leaders like that too in the industry. The most important thing for a sustainable organization is to look at it in terms of what are we building now, which will not only help me now, but also to the midterm and long term, right? So as an example, I'll give you a very, very simple example, right? Let's look at infrastructure today, right? Infrastructure meaning most people today building a company would have something on the cloud, regardless of which hyperscaler you're using. Now, even on the cloud, do you have a platform? Are you building platforms that are, completely the only way to scale, given the kind of market that we're talking about in India, the only way to scale is it by going horizontal? Meaning, do I continue to add more and more servers, which means, one, obviously cost is going to be very high. Two, sustainability-wise, in terms of the carbon footprint that you're going to, that's going to be used there is going to be very significant. So as leaders in organizations, it could be in the IT organization, otherwise, are we making those choices that will bring down my carbon footprint? Are we making those choices that will help me use my money in more beneficial ways, right? Because there's always going to be something new coming up. I mean, we saw it with the ERP wave, we saw it with the big data wave. For people to make money out of it took more than 20 years for the ERP to get it implemented and then to get money out of it. So sometimes looking beyond just the hype or the fad cycle is very, very critical. I mean, it's one thing to look at the Gartner reports and so on and look at the hype cycles, but it's also important to see what is it, what can I do today to my business and what is it that's going to help me in the long term as well.
See, the technology is changing at the same speed as Apple is kind of launching their new version every time, right? But obviously we'll not buy that unless until we really feel that it's adding value, right? So as a leader, it is always important to see, if there's a new technology, a new hype, is it something that you really want to invest in, right? And is it in your vision? Some of them might, some of them might not, right? So that is where you'll have to kind of take a very calculative decision, right? Do you want to kind of hold up for, or do you want to see what's happening, right? Like a Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, when it kind of came, it kind of, everybody wanted to invest in there, right? But now, everybody want to kind of take a cautious approach. So that is something that you'll have to take. But it depends upon leader to leader, right? So there is no right or wrong. It's all the vision and the thought leadership that you have will drive that.
A couple of things that I would say is, one, everyone said new technologies come. You mentioned about how technologies are changing. But I think as a responsible organization, as a responsible leader, I would think that, do I need to invest on it, or do I go out and get those services bought in? Because if I invest on it, I also invest a lot of capital in it. I kind of take away some component from some other place and put it over here, or actually I go out and get those. So I go into an alliance with someone and get that technology or get that new disruption into the workplace in my organization. And I think that is the decision that actually drives a lot of investment and a lot of strategy, a technology strategy for a lot of organizations nowadays.
So, sir, I don't know if you follow the news, but very recently, right, there were reports about how in one of the towns in the US, they actually ran out of utilities, right? And that was because of what we're discussing today, right? Just running these huge servers and data centers and whatnot. So I think in the short term, we are going to see a spike, right? But I mean, I know that, you know, all of us here are working on something or the other, which is actually to bring those spikes down. For example, what I am doing in the company is trying to figure out if stuff that today we do with large language models, which requires tons of GPUs, can I do it with CPUs for inferencing and training, right? Which can bring down the cost and also therefore the whole impact on the environment significantly lower. Second, in fact, I am doing experiments to figure out if I can run models locally on the laptop, which is a 16 gig RAM. So I've had some success with, you know, maybe 6 gig RAM is used for the models to run, and then maybe 10 is available. But my team tells me 10 is not enough to run the rest of the stuff, right? I'm not going to survive just running your models, right? I have to do the rest of the stuff on the laptop. So we're experimenting significantly. I'm sure others are doing a lot more. But the point I'm making is I think we are on that journey. Short term, we are going to see spikes. But I think all of us are thinking about this, and that's the good part, right? We are all thinking about it. So we are hopefully not going to have this plastic problem that we had, right? I remember when I was young, I had zero plastic in my home. Steel dabbas and, you know, glassware and porcelain and whatnot. And over a period of 10 years or maybe 12 years, everything changed, right? We replaced every damn thing with plastic. And then after 10 years, somebody is telling us that, you know, plastic is bad for health. It causes cancer and whatnot. So in the first place, why the heck did we do this? Right? So hopefully with AI, we are not going to have the plastic problem. We are thinking about it responsibility from day one. So initially there will be spikes, but I think all of us are treating it with a lot of responsibility, and we will perhaps get to a point where, you know, we are to the ideal state.
Just I would like to add to that. In fact, I think at your Manipal campus, in fact, I had an opportunity to visit your Manipal campus, and I think as a part of your sustainable initiative, I was given to understand that you have probably a facility which is coming up here on campus, which is completely going to be, solar powered or renewable energy powered, and that there is not going, it's going to be zero electricity that's going to be used. So frankly speaking, when the interaction happened with one of your professors over there and he was explaining about it, the way I would say is I think sustainability and the the green energy and the sustainability, I think MAHE is already on its journey. I think first of all we would like to congratulate you that you already talked about it, and in your Manipal campus, it's already, I think probably it's already underway in terms of a construction, and you were so that probably in about 6 months to 1 year, I think it's going to be fully functional. So it's going to be like a completely one of the green energy buildings that's going to be coming up. So I think the way I would put it across is now, that's one implementation part of it. But when you look at sustainability, so now of course you are using your solar energy, you are generating the energy, and probably you are powering it up. Now you can also come back in terms of, can I power back to the grid? Because what's been happening is, in fact, this is an initiative where we have been seeing across in couple of places, even in Karnataka, where one is their incentives are being given in terms of your enabling enabling the houses in terms of the houses trying to contribute back as energy grids. So that means giving back energy to the grid. So that means to say you are being able to generate, you are consuming it, what is surplus, you are giving it back to the government, for which you are again being remunerated. So I think just to answer back on it, I think at the Manipal what you have already implemented, or rather which is in the implementation process in terms of coming up with a green building, what could probably be surplus, because you of course you are generating, you would be consuming it, but I think you can also look at how you can give it back to the society, or rather giving it back to the grid, because from that I think you would be able to power up couple of other facilities in Manipal itself. So I think I just wanted to touch upon this, because I think your campus in Manipal has already emulated that, and I think it's a congratulatory message from the panel for the green energy initiative that has been taken up at Manipal.
Yeah, thank you. And I saw a lot of claps going on, so it's an indication for us to shut up now. And but I think I really loved hearing my co-panelist kind of talking about leadership, right? Leadership is journey, right? So it's I would say it's marathon, right? So you need to kind of achieve certain things before you have to be responsible. So with that, I would like to thank everybody in my panel and the team for listening, because it was the last session. So thank you, and thank you for having us here.
Thanks to all the panelists. It was a very fruitful discussion and a lot of new and interesting points. I'll just request everybody to just wait for 2 minutes. May I call Professor Laura to felicitate the panelists? Thanks, Professor Laura. Thanks to the panelists. So we close for the day. Tomorrow we start at 9 o'clock. So have a great evening. Thanks once again to the panelists. Thank you. Thanks.